the microphone. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Ajnulambita Bujo Kanakabhadato Sankirtanai Kapitoro Amalaya Taksho Vishvambaro Dvijabaro Yugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gododai Pushpavanto Chitra Sandotamamudo Vande Ham Shri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charano Sako Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Subalapriyo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Yashavanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Shri Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara Ki Jai Shri Siddhartha Gopal Ki Jai Shri Sri Radha Govinda Ki Jai Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande. So, good morning, everyone. Nice to be with you. We're speaking a little bit about the nature of Sakirasa, or divine fraternal love, and that in reference to a short book that I am in the process really of writing, although fairly well along. And we're drawing somewhat from the introduction of the book. And weren't here yesterday, and also because the discussion yesterday was rather broad and introductory and attempting to bring a very theologically elevated and esoteric topic kind of down to the ground, if you will, that we could get a bit of a handle on it and what it means practically relative to ourselves, let's say most persons trajectory on the path, if you will, to understanding it all, which isn't that high. It's a big thing, right? What is the nature of being, the nature of reality? As I often say, what's out there and who's asking the question? Those are the two biggest questions. So, the way in which we spoke a little bit about Sakiras was by way of translating the term Sakiras as divine eternal love. So when I say to an average person, are you interested in divine fraternal love? What would come to their mind at best? And I think that in the broadest sense, what comes to mind is the noble idea that surfaces within humanity, the idea that we are all brothers and sisters, like we say, sisters and brothers of different mothers. In other words, we all have something deeply in common that transcends our provincial, familial connections, our social sense of self, our racial sense of self, our genders, and so on, our nationalities, and so forth. And looking at the world and ourselves in this way is it 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 takes us in a transcendent direction. Again, transcending racial differences, gender differences, religious differences, um, um, or different religious difference means different ways of talking about the same thing that people fight over, and so because they don't realize they're talking about the same thing. And national differences, ethnic differences, so on and so forth. All these differences, there's a sense within human society that they are superficial. When we sit down and think about it, or if we think highly, in a high, like noble way. And what is central to this thinking then is this sense of equality. We're all equal. Because this equality speaks about something that transcends our differences, it speaks about something that we are, or what we are, that is different from those genders and nationalities and so on and so forth. And it is us, Vedanta would say, in the real sense of the term. And as it takes us in the direction of transcending material limitations, conditions, sensibilities, and so forth that we struggle with to get beyond. In life, we are always trying to go a little further, break new ground. We have this strong sense in human consciousness that there's more to life than the limitations that we're experiencing dictate. We can break beyond those limitations. There are simple ways in which I've spoken about this that I think rings true. For example, we as humans want to fly in the sky. We want to, explore the bottom of the ocean. Now, fish don't think about flying in the sky, and birds don't think about exploring the bottom of the ocean, but humans do. We think we should be able to do that. Why do we think we should be able to do that? Well, from the point of view of Vedanta, it's because we actually transcend the limitations of the human or the fish or the bird species. And in human life, that which we are that transcends these limitations is coming to the fore. It's a special form of life that's unique from the less complex forms of life, and it's characterized by the self, the unit of consciousness that is life in all species, asking about itself. That's coming to the fore. And that how does that show up? It shows up in the question why, instead of how to do this, how to do that, how to get this, how to eat, as Prabhupada would say, how to sleep, how to mate, how to defend. These are questions that we're confronted with, but there's a larger question that we're confronted with in human consciousness that less complex forms of life are not confronted with. The cows, bless their hearts, they're not asking why. They're not troubled by why. Right? We're troubled by it. We're pressed by it. Why do I exist? Why am I? Or what is the meaning? What is the purpose? We're purpose driven. We feel we have a purpose. What is it? What is the meaning of life? Even if we argue that there's no meaning to life, we found a meaning. It's the no meaning. So you just can't get away from this. This is human consciousness. And from the point, there are different ways to talk about that, but from the point of view of Vedanta, which is a very, very distinguished and old school of thought that is not simply, I should say, what Prabhupada would refer to as an armchair school of thought, where you can sit in your chair and philosophize and so forth. But it's a philosophy that arises out of um, um, practical living, and um, it's a lived, I should say, it's a lived philosophy. Hmm? You can't live that life. You can't live that. Hmm? So we want a philosophy or a metaphysic outlook on life that we can actually live, and the Vedanta is such one. It mandates hmm, um, that the end of knowledge is, well, as the Gita said. What does the Gita say? Is the end of knowledge? Raja Vidya. And what is that? Raj means king. Vidya means knowledge. What is the king of knowledge? That is the beginning of the 9th chapter. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. It's the king of knowledge, the king of secrets. Hmm? Susukam kartam avyayam. It's not hard. Hmm? He said, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, pavitram idam uttamam. Yat prachavagamam dharmam. You can see it. Praksha. Susukam kartam avyayam. Well, what is it? Who knows? The answer comes at the end of the same chapter. Manmanabhava madbhakto madhyajimam namaskuru. Right? It says, love is the end of knowledge. There's an old song when I was a kid. To know you. To love you is to know you. Something like that. You know? So there's a fellow who asked me from a different Vaishnav tradition. He said, in your school, you say that there's a dimension called Goloka, another dimension called Goloka, where people are enlightened and liberated, but they don't know that they are, or that Krishna is God. How can there be ignorance within enlightenment? Reasonable question. And where is the scriptural evidence for this? He asked me. So I said, no, that you misunderstand. The ignorance there, use your word, is really the highest knowledge. It's knowing God on a different level, beyond God's majesty, which would and does keep us at some distance from Him. You follow? I mean, if I was God and I said so, you might, and you believe me, you all kind of said, maybe move back a little bit. Whoa. Right? Krishna says that at the end of the 10th chapter of the Gita, what does he say? He says, Yad Vyad Vimutimat Sattvam Srimad Urjitameva Tattameva Bhagachatam Mamate Jos Masambhavan. After he says, amongst immovable things, I am the Himalayas. Amongst bodies of water, I am the ocean. Amongst trees in California, I am the redwoods. As we said yesterday, amongst singers, female, I am Barbara Streisand. I was talking about her nephew is a friend of mine and a not very nice devotee. So I was talking to him the other day. I mentioned that. I said, I'm going to tell her that. I'm going to tell her that you said that and give her your edition of the Gita. So that section of the Gita is very beautiful because it talks about those things in nature or in the world that just cause us to like take notice, and they're awe-inspiring. It causes us to step back for a moment. When in Audari, if you go about 12 miles out, suddenly you reach the coast. There's a fantastic view of the ocean and the rocks going down to it, and so forth. It's just stunning when, right? Or you go in the redwood forest, and suddenly you feel I become the object, and the trees are the subject. You get displaced from your unconscious way of moving in the world, which is I'm the center. We don't consciously go around thinking that, but unconsciously we're functioning very much in that way. So to get displaced from that, there are powerful things, whether it be the ability in great sports people. I visited our devotees in Kansas last year, in Bhaktivan. Some of you have been there, Indranuja, Lotasaki, maybe you know them as kids even, some of you. We were talking about different things, and something came up, and I said, among quarterbacks, I am Patrick Mahomes. They all went, yeah. That's a team from that city, and he's famous, a newer famous person. They all got it, like, yeah, wow, he's like not human, how he does that. So Krishna says, anyway, at the end of the Gita, amongst all of these vibhutis that I've mentioned, and I'm just, just throwing some things out there, you can extend upon it in the ways in which I have, Barbara, Patrick, whatever, Redwoods, and so forth. He said, these are all just, we put it all together, the whole thing. It's a spark only of my splendor. He's saying, this whole thing is coming from the Mahavishnu, and Mahavishnu is only a spark of me. I am Swayam Bhagawan. And as we hear that, we're going to be, how close can we get to such, a reality, right? So the majesty of the Godhead, how do we get there? But in Sakura, in the Bhakti school, in the Bhakti school, yes, the ignorance, apparently, where we don't know that Krishna is God, we think of him as our friend, or Yasoda thinks of him as a son, and so forth. This ignorance is actually the highest knowledge, because it takes the shape of love. Love is the end of knowledge, and love affords a kind of knowing about the absolute that, as much as love is lacking, we would not know. You might know that God is great, but how sweet and how charming he is, and so this requires a certain approach for that to be revealed. For the majestic absolute to take on a finite-like appearance for the sake of shared intimacy with those who so desire it. This is a very extraordinary theological idea, and this is what we call Krishna consciousness, right? And with that understanding of the Godhead, that feature of the God, that face of the Godhead, of which there are many, that particular face, this prospect, as I say, opens up for us to have a shared intimacy that constitutes the fullest measure of knowing. It's the end of knowledge. It's knowing about things about him that are secret, things that are hidden by his majesty and the distance that it creates. But because he is what he is, those secrets are not dark secrets. They're very bright, very beautiful, right? Very charming. And so this is where we can go with any of the bhakti rasas, right, that are presented to us through the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And within them, Sakya Rasa is one of those. And the interesting thing about Sakya Rasa, as we're talking about it, is that it carries with it in a prominent way the broader sense the central focus of that which is the broader sense of divine fraternal love, the brotherly love, love for one another. If we love one another in a way that transcends our differences, as I said yesterday in the words of Christ, if we love our neighbor as ourself, or in the words of the Gita, as a yogi loves, feels the sufferings of others as if it's his own. This is a high thing. If we can reach that, if we can identify with that noble thought and pursue it, try to put it into practice, we're going to be we're going to have to enter a discipline by which the false egoic self that creates differences is deconstructed. People say, do you have a soul? They ask the question, do you have a soul? We don't say that's not a question for us. Do you have a soul? We could say, I am a soul. Okay. Well, why do you believe that you are a soul? Or why do you believe that there is such a thing as a soul? For us, that's not the right question. It's a strange question. It's like asking, how do you believe in consciousness? I mean, how do you not? Believing depends upon consciousness. You have to have consciousness to believe. Floors don't believe, right? Stones don't believe. We believe. And what is the believing part of us? This is this ephemeral thing that you can't quite put your hand on, you can't quite grasp, you can't quite measure, because everything is inside of it. Everything exists within consciousness. It's the most fundamental reality. And we are of that. We are of that. That's what we have in common with one another. And that's what we have in common with God. We're like the sparks, and God is like the fire. So we are one, in Prabhupada's words, qualitatively, and quantitatively different. We're a contingent reality, and the Godhead is an unconditional reality. And again, now we're going back to, wow, that's big. How can I get close to such a big thing? This is what the Bhakti Rasa, the school of Bhakti Rasa, the school of Goswami, the school of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is offering us, offering human society. Enter into this school, and as you do, as part of what constitutes bhakti sadhana as a practice, these material designations that separate us from one another are eradicated. We start to see through them. We see through them intellectually, and we want to be rational. So we pursue a method, a transrational method, like chanting. It's not irrational, but it transcends where you can go by your intellect alone. It makes sense. So let me now dissolve these differences that I have with others. That are superficial, that is based on desires and the identity that rises out of them. So, and simultaneously, as these desires are like leaves that fall off the tree. Make a little effort, shake it maybe, but they're going to fall off. There's a time that they'll fall away. If you put your time in doing the right things, they'll fall away. I don't want to say there's no struggle. There is effort to bhakti, but we can't make an effort that's counterproductive. We have to, with good guidance and some balance, make an effort that corresponds with our eligibility, our understanding, our conditioning. We should get help in that regard, so we don't cheat ourselves. There should be some effort made, but the example of fruits or leaves falling from the tree when the season comes is appropriate as well. So don't bother you too much, your conditioning, but don't let it get the best of you, so that you do nothing to overcome it at the same time. Best thing is, as we heard yesterday, it's what? Keeping good association. Keep hearing these themes and so forth. And naturally, they will inform your actions. Your actions will be informed. So a bhakti orientation, we call that sambandha, will inform actions that really constitute bhakti, which will bear the fruit of this kind of love, which is ultimate kind of knowing, if you will. So we're talking about Sakya-rasa, but we began talking about it in a kind of a universal way. How is that? By metaphysical truth, equality. I mean, who doesn't want, who doesn't call for equality, right? So we got a metaphysical truth. This is a component of all the forms of bhakti rasa, right? As it is with Brahma Sayuja, entering into Brahman, where there's no rasa. Oneness with Brahman. The spark enters the fire, right? So it's a lower level oneness, if you will, but it's a philosophical, metaphysical oneness, out of which the possibility of emotional oneness with God can arise, and that is amongst the four bhakti rasas that Goloka, the sacred dimension, is made up of, that Krishna corresponds with. The love of a subordinate, the love of a parent or an elder, the love of a friend, the love of a lover. If you want to love like this with God, which is like, that's a powerful kind of love. Because if you go to church on Sunday to love God like this, but something happens to your daughter, your mind's going to be going there for sure. Or your son. Or, when I was a kid, well, she's pretty. Up there in aisle 2, that was, so those types of love, if you will, are more powerful given our conditioning. Now, if those types of love could somehow be spiritualized, how powerful would they be? They would take us beyond the reverential love and afford us an intimate connection with the God, which would reveal secrets about Him that are not dark. He's dark, but they're bright. Inside, He's very bright. Antar Krishna, Bahir Gauram. Krishna's dark outside, but He's very bright inside. Right? Means He's thinking of, he corresponds with Radha's love. His inside is all about Radha's love for him. She is golden. Antar Krishna Bahir Gauram. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is just the reverse jacket. He's bright on the outside. Well, it says that's what that verse is about. Antar Krishna means inside Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is dark, he's Krishna. But outside, he's wearing Krishna's inside in the golden form. Expression of love for himself in the extreme, as embodied by Radha, Bhakti Devi, very goddess of bhakti herself. So through the bhakti sadhana of the Chaitanya lineage, such a prospect is there before us. This metaphysical, this divine fraternal love in the broad sense is developed upon, let us say. when we come to Bhakti Rasa in general, and then specifically with regard to Bhakti Rasa, Sakya Bhakti Rasa, because central to Sakya Bhakti Rasa is what? Equality between myself and the Godhead. This, the Godhead, means Gopal Krishna, equality. But this includes the metaphysical oneness. I'm a spark, he's the fire, we're both of the same quality. It includes that, but more. What is the more? The emotion, the feeling that me and Krishna are one, like you have with friends. I can say, Mahamantra and I are one. It doesn't mean we're the same person. We're on the same page. We're in the same paragraph. We're in the same parenthetical phrase, right? We're in the same sentence. We agree what she feels like about it, I feel about it. So these friends of Krishna, depicted in art and drama, dance and literature and so on and so forth. These are the embodiments of what we call Sakyarasa. This is a very elevated esoteric topic. We're trying to bring it down so that we can get some identification with it on a level that applies to ourselves and where we're at and how to think about our life. And in such a way that hopefully such a thing becomes a prospect for us, as an ideal worthy of experiencing, of realizing. Of course, the realization of this, the experience of this, will solve, at least for us, all the human problems. Right? What are the human problems? The lack of mastery over our humanness. That's the human problem. Humanity is a kind of a faulty condition. As we say, well, we're only human, right? It's true. We're only human. But actually, there's something about us that transcends the limit of our humanity, theoretically. Let us realize it. So in the process, in the method, the practice of doing that, in the context of Bhakti Rasa or Bhakti Sadhana, then that humanness, this is the beginning, that humanness is mastered. And you want to find a miracle? That's a miracle. My Prabhupada was a miracle, walking miracle, living miracle. What was the miracle? I could see and I could experience that he had transcended his humanness. He had mastered, conquered over lust, greed, envy, jealousy. These are all problems, right? What's wrong with lust? Well, it's a dissatisfied condition. You tell me, right? So, to mastery over the senses and the mind, that's a miracle. Once I was sitting with Prabhupada in South India. It was a big Pangal program. 50,000 people attended. It was in Hyderabad. Prabhupada was lecturing from the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, the teachings of Rishabdev. And after one night, he asked for questions, and people had written down some questions, and they were handed up. So one of the questions was, Prabhupada ji, Swamiji, have you performed any miracles? Somebody wanted to know. And Prabhupada said, see these boys here? And he pointed, I was sitting right there. He said, they've given up sex. That is my miracle. Everyone going, whoa, yeah, that's a miracle. You're kidding me. Really? That's a miracle. So, yes. So, and this is just the byproduct of the power of bhakti. Think of the power of bhakti as a spiritual discipline. There are other spiritual disciplines by which you can accomplish things that may be more in reach for you and make more sense, and you might more identify with more. Just like brotherly love, like I was talking about, I could identify with that, but like going to Krishna's place, does it even exist? Or I don't know if I can identify with that. Okay. But the method to achieve that universal love, let us say, has to have some power. Quite a bit. Now, if there is a path that theoretically makes the master of everything whom all the wonder is but a spark of his splendor, puts him under your control, makes him an equal to you, that you can push over. What's the power of that path? Oh my God, it has that power. Therefore, the power to transcend the limits of our humanness is included within that and much, much more. So it makes sense that let me apply myself in relation to this high ideal. How much power then I will have to deal with an immediate problem that I'm facing. Immediate problem that I can readily and rationally, entirely identify with that I have, or a goal that's worth it, that I can understand. I can walk away from here and say, yeah, that would be worth achieving. Being able to love my neighbor as myself. Your neighbor's probably not going to change, so you're going to have to change a lot. And how are you going to have to change? You're going to have to go within. And if you go so far in, then I'll give you a story or a little anecdote. A warrior and a monk had a meeting, and they were discussing. And the warrior got irritated by the monk and the way he was answering and talking. And what are you doing? What kind of life is this? You live in a cave, sitting here all the time. So many things to do. I'm a warrior, saving the world and dealing with evil and so forth, and you're doing nothing. And anyway, they discussed back, and the warrior got irritated. And he says, don't you realize that in the blink of an eye, I could throw my spear right through you? They were trying to explore the inner world. They were trying to navigate the inner course, the interdimensional perspective. This is a courageous course, right? Very noble, very high, very dignified. So, Bhakti Rasa, the Bhakti Marg, if you will, very powerful, and it leads us, as I say, to this position of subjugating he who is that which is the source of everything, right? And it takes different shapes. So Dasya, Vatsalya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Sakya, and Madhurya. Now, amongst these four, we want to discuss the virtues of Sakyaras comparatively. Central to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's tradition is Madhurya Rasa, a particular kind of Madhurya Rasa, the romantic love of God. Radha's love for Krishna is celebrated. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embodied that love. He was, in a sense, Krishna himself pursuing that love from Radha's vantage point, very esoteric idea. And so it is the dominant ideal, if you will, within the school of Bhakti, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Bhakti Rasa. And comparatively, I mean, there's been so much has been written about this. The Goswamis have written so many esoteric texts, poems, songs. It's been expressed in art for centuries. The love story of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is, of course, the central text of the Gaudiyas. We have a good argument that we make that the Jiva Goswamis made that it's the central text of the entirety of the sacred texts of the Hindus. which is considerably, as a body of literature, much more voluminous than the central religious texts of any other tradition, like the Bible or the Quran or the Lotus Sutra and so forth. So a lot more has been said. Within a school that says, like all of them, that, well, words can't do justice to reality or to God. Some people say, therefore, we should be silent, like Ramana Maharshi, be silent. That was his teaching, be silent. And I have to admit, he was pretty good at it. He was pretty good at being silent. Most of them who teach you should be silent talk a lot. At least he didn't say much. He was silent. But our theory is, or our perspective is, yes, God or ultimate reality transcends the limits of word and thought. Can't be captured by word or thought. Therefore, there's not enough that you can say about the Godhead. So in our tradition, so much has been written about Krishna. But mostly it's all been written, what has been written about is from this romantic perspective of Madhurya Rasa, and appropriately so, because Chaitanya Vaishnavism is Krishna coming to taste the love of Radha and show the way by an example himself. It's called his Acharya Leela, where Krishna becomes the Acharya and shows by example, right? And therefore, for that reason alone, books about Sakirasa, one of the other rasas, in Gaudiya Vaishnavas are limited at best. Limited at best. But it's a little peculiar that that's the case. Why? Because the other self of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Nityananda Roy, Balaram, Ki Jai, right? The other self. And the birth, if you will, in Leela, behavior. Why doesn't he report about Krishna's secret love, unmarried love rendezvous? Because he knows they're good. But given the cultural setting and the religious setting of the, if you will, the aesthetic setting of the drama, he can't speak openly about that. That's called parakiya. He wants that parakiya. But as Nityananda Prabhu, he can speak about the parakiya, celebrate it. Nityananda Prabhu is sending people to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he himself is celebrating this romantic love of Krishna. But he is the very personification of friendly love. So you would think, given that, that there would be more literature in the Gaudiya Sampradaya about this particular sentiment, Sakyarasa. But there's very little. Now, there are reasons for this, and these reasons more or less amount to the fact that as good as the spiritual tradition is, it can become defective over time. In this world, it can lose some of its spiritual power. There can be misrepresentation of it. False gurus mean there must be real gurus. There can't be false ones if there aren't real ones. Sometimes people say the real gurus are in India, not these Americans, Westerners, or Europeans. Well, per capita, there's more bogus gurus in India than anywhere in the world by far. They're everywhere. So misrepresentation of a good thing doesn't do away with the good thing. It's the norm. It's to be expected, right? Krishna says it in the Gita. He says, Evam paramparam paptam imam rajashaya vidu sakalene mahata yoganashta parantapa. Sometimes it's great tradition that I'm speaking to you about, Arjun. By the influence of time, its essence, its power becomes covered. And I am time. I cover my own tradition so that I can shed light on one of my bhaktas who restore it, rectify it. And we're fortunate to be in the lineage of one Bhaktivinoda Thakur who Krishna chose to be such a person, who restore the Gaudiya Vaishnavism in its pristine, by good example, and to circulate it widely as he has, touching all of us and so forth. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur comes in a lineage from Nityananda Prabhu and Janava, which is the Sakyarasa lineage. But the corruption, if you will, or the depletion of the covering of the spiritual vitality of the tradition after the disappearance of Nityananda Prabhu started to become prominent, and it corresponded with, at the same time, the Sampradayas, the gift to the Sampradaya in the form of the Goswami's books, with this emphasis on Madhurya Rasa and the excellent Ujjval Nilmani and Govinda Lilamritam and so on and so forth. And so, so much attention was turned, in one sense, to Madhurya Rasa, but the depleted nature in terms of spiritual prowess of the Sampradaya in some quarters that was previously oriented towards Sakya said, oh, we should have a Madhurya too. It will sell better. And we'll make a living like this. We can give you this, and you come and become my disciple, and make sure I have chapatis in my old age, and you'll make a business out of it. This was going on some centuries, some time before Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and it reached a pitch that a person like Bhaktivinoda Thakur was, by Krishna's arrangement, to appear on the scene and shed light on such, and refocus, if you will, persons onto the essence of what this what the spiritual vitality of the tradition is. So for such reasons, there's not an abundance of literature about Sakyarasa. However, the book that we're talking from, Sakya Pranaya, a short book that I've written, would be the third of three recent books within the last, I think, decade about the subject. All of which coming from ourselves, right? Our paribar and our sangha, or my friends, circle of friends, which is about to be published. Then this book, Sakya Pranaya. What all of a sudden? Why this is happening? Well, there's one answer to that. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who comes from the same sector in Bengal society that Nityananda Prabhu particularly catered to, and in which all of his eternal associates, the Dwadasa Gopal, appeared and began circulating this, sharing this wealth of Sakyaras with the people of Bengal, people of Saptagram. It's said Nityananda Prabhu appeared in the world just for them, the mercantile class, particularly for them. And wide circulation. This is the characteristic of Nityananda Prabhu, wide circulation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. And we see this in Prabhupada, this wave of Sakya-rasa coming in the ocean of Bhakti Rasa within the Sampradaya in the modern days. An interesting point in this regard about the paucity of literature on Sakya-rasa and Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Aside from the 3 books that I mentioned, coming from our own group in particular, there's a book named Preo Bhakti Rasarnava? Yeah, Preo Bhakti Rasarnava, which is all about Sakya-rasa. Where did this book come from? Where did this book come from? I'll tell you. There's a godbrother of mine named Dasarasutta. And there was a period in ISKCON when devotees from ISKCON were going and hearing from Pujapat Sridhar Maharaj across the Ganga in Mayapur, and it was frowned upon, but it was okay. And he was one of them, going back and forth, and sleeping in ISKCON, going here from Sridhar Maharaj. So before ISKCON cut off relationships with Sridhar Maharaj, unfortunately, Pujapat Sridhar Maharaj. And he spoke Bengali, speaks Bengali, and had a literary flair. So this is a disciple of Prabhupada, right? Influenced by Sridhar Maharaj also. This person went and looked for old, ancient, unpublished manuscripts in Bengali, and he just happened to find this text. Now, I have spoken from right here over Skype with the Mahant in that part of West Bengal, the leader of that sector, in that lineage in which this book was came from which this book came, a couple hundred years ago. I've spoken with him at length about their lineage, about this book and certain points, and so on and so forth. And the lineage is not very spiritually vital at this time. My questions were like, he's going like, wow, those are really spiritual questions. So anyway, he was appreciating my interest in an essential way in something that the lineage had kind of, by the influence of the world, moved away from to some extent. So the point I'm making, not to diminish him in any way or them in any way, is that this book was there, but was covered over. Wasn't something that we were given class from. So this devotee, he found that book. How do you think he found that book? Is it a coincidence, or do things happen for a reason? You're trying to understand. He's Prabhupada's disciple. He was connected with Sridhar Maharaj. He has his own affinity for Sakya-rasa, his own liking for that. And he went and looked, and this book appeared. He took the book out, he published it. This was many, many, many years ago, in a kind of a wide landscape type layout. It first came. He published it. So now, in more recent years, it's been republished, and another devotee named Bhanuswami, another godbrother of mine, translated this, another edition of it, and so many devotees have read it who are interested in Sakya-rasa. And why are they interested in Sakya-rasa? Because A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who himself said, "This is my ideal." Tomano melani bai abarshe shukapai gocharani guri dinbo kottavani chutta chutti vanikai luttaputi sedin kobe hobe more. Sedin kobe hobe more. He prayed that I might attain that ideal, to somersault in the forest with Krishna and herd cows with him, day in and day out in eternity. When will that day be mine? When will that day be mine? Sedin kobe hobe more. Sedin kobe hobe more. Tomara melane bhai, oh my friend, Abarse Sukapai, Gocharani Guridin. This is his ideal. So this is me. This is me. Now, what I mean by that, because you might want to know me more, better. Prabhupada did a great thing, wide campaign like Nityananda Prabhu's, right, all over the world. He has a big mission called ISKCON that is still widely circulating basic teachings of Krishna consciousness, right, and having success in that regard. There are some of Prabhupada's disciples who felt not quite as nourished in the aftermath of Prabhupada's disappearance or passing from the world, from ISKCON and its leadership, as they did when Prabhupada was here. And so they sought nourishment elsewhere, right? For example, from Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj. After the disappearance of Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj, Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj became a little prominent for some also. For the same reason, they went to Pramod Puri Maharaj. Later, the spiritual nephew of Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj and Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, some disciples of Prabhupada went to Narayan Maharaj. So you have a few groups, right, of Prabhupada's disciples and grand disciples and so forth. Let's talk about his disciples. And they all are connected to Prabhupada. Some of them are connected to Prabhupada and they remain in the ISKCON and they have a certain orientation towards them. Some connected with Prabhupada through Chaitanya Saraswat Math, and they're affiliated with Chaitanya Saraswat Math. And so they have a certain take on Prabhupada from there. Some with like Narayan Maharaj group, and they have a certain take on Prabhupada. Then you have people like me, or just me. I may be the only one of this kind, right? But yes, I'm also influenced by Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj, who's my Siksha Guru. But as he told me when I asked some service, he said, "You know everything. Swami Maharaj has given you everything." Prabhupada. Start a mission, serve him, and I'll be in the background. And he didn't want me to join his mission. Not for bad reasons. He was quite nice to me, quite kind, quite generous, quite loving, very affectionate. He could. I had taken sannyas from Prabhupada, first initiation, second initiation sannyas. Most of the others of my godbrothers who had come to Sridhar Maharaj had not taken sannyas from Prabhupada. Two others had, but most of them had not. And I was, also very well known by all my godbrothers. But Sridhar Maharaj wanted me. He could understand. Let me put it like this: he could understand my deep connection with Prabhupada. What I mean by this is that it's not a bad thing. But some of my godbrothers, who are disciples of Prabhupada, went to Sridhar Maharaj, their connection is deeper with Sridhar Maharaj than it is with Prabhupada. How do you measure these things? It's hard to say. There's no fault whatsoever being made here. This is just their reality, and it's a good reality. It's where they were supposed to be and do, and they are, and they're flourishing, and we respect them. Similarly, some have gone to, with Narayan Maharaj, let's say, and they're in that group, and they see Prabhupada through that lens, even though they were Prabhupada's disciples, like Shamarani, for example. They see him through that lens, and all good. That's that. But I'm different in this regard. And what my focus has been is not only, as it was when Prabhupada was here, was the wide circulation of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, which by his grace I was able to do for his pleasure, to make him happy. He said, "You are the incarnation of book distribution. Take the necessary steps and do the needful." That's what he wrote to me. It was a famous letter, as you know. So, I was very, very central to the wide dissemination, for better or worse, of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in Prabhupada's presence. And it was done by his grace in a way that kept me very connected with, I had, in a sense, a high position, but I remained very connected with the ordinary, the regular sector of devotees. You know the saying of this poem of Kipling, if if you can walk with kings and stay connected with the common person at the same time, not lose your touch with the commoners because of associating with kings. It's a beautiful poem. He goes through so many. He really talks about what a self-realized person is. You should look it up. If it's called. Joni Mitchell put it to music in more recent times. Also, famous singer-songwriter. So I was blessed to be in that position. I would go out on the street and sell the books with arm in arm, hand in hand with the other devotees, help them, assist them, help them deal with their minds and the austerity of such, set an example of sadhana they could follow that would give them strength to go out and meet with the public and try to talk to them about such esoteric topics and so on and so forth. I would do all that. And then I'd come in, they'd put me on a seat to sit and I'd give a lecture also. So I was kind of like a Shiva Tattva. My name is a name for Lord Shiva also. That's kind of in between. I wasn't like a GBC or an official leader. I had no official leadership position. I had a natural kind of leadership position. And it was only based on my affection for Prabhupada, my desire to do what Prabhupada wanted, as best as I could possibly figure out how to do that. They used to say, he was a used car salesman. That's why he's so good at book distribution. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. I never held a job at all. I didn't know what to do with myself until I met Prabhupada. That's when my life started. When my life turned on. When I met Prabhupada, then I just knew what to do. And I did what came to me as being was necessary. In Los Angeles, there was a warehouse full of books, and nobody knew how to really figure out how to sell them. Why are there so many? I mean, some were selling, they were trying, and I thought, well, I could try that. I can talk. I like this. I could talk to people about it. Prabhupada wants it. And there you go. So I became the book distribution, avatar of sorts in Prabhupada's words, which were very generous. Prabhupada was very generous. So I'm really made of his mercy. My connection with him is very, very deep. Sometimes Sridhar Maharaj would give, sannyas names to the devotees. There's a whole reason for that. It's very interesting, and it was very nice the way he did that. But he asked me, so should I change the name? I said, no. He liked that very much. Prabhupada called me. Tripurais want me. That's a whole other, I'll talk about that some other time, the details of that. So he could understand. Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj. He instructed me in such a way. More or less, don't join the Chaitanya Saraswat Math. You do something for Prabhupada. And so what I've done, in his presence, with wide circulation, I took Sridhar Maharaj's advice that in his absence, you should try to find him in your heart. What is he about? What did he put in your heart that you didn't realize he was putting there when he was teaching you and setting an example and so forth? Explore that, look within. And I already had an inclination, a natural inclination towards the friendly love that Prabhupada really embodied, and you could see it at times. I can't say that I thought about it in great detail, but Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj was kind enough to explain Prabhupada's prayer in a very beautiful way that confirmed the kind of feelings that I had and gave some more form to them. The poem I cited, he knew it by heart. And so my focus then, for a number of other reasons as well, has been to explore the inner life of Prabhupada. And I didn't come up empty-handed. And so that's why some of these books that are rare in the Gaudiya Sampradaya have come out through us. I connected Preo Bhakti Rasarnava also. This is coming because of who Prabhupada is. Dasara Sutta was his disciple. Sridhar Maharaj confirmed Prabhupada's affinity for Sakirasa, a glorious thing, a beautiful thing, like his godbrother Kinchan Krishnadas Babaji, similar sentiment, and so forth. So I have given some focus to this, and I'm speaking about this from this little book I've written, but I can speak equally about much lower and significant and important topics, as you know, and I have at length. So there's a place for this. I don't feel I do it out of place, but and if you read my book Circle of Friends, every poem, every insight about the Leelas is laced with tattva and philosophy, also the philosophical ground, the underpinning the whole thing. So myself and you extended, those of you who are my students and friends, this is what we're doing, whether you realize it or not. We are following Prabhupada, outside and inside, upside and downside, inside and outside. We recognize this is a very extraordinary contribution to the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, what he did in the modern world, and we want to. We think we could spend forever plumbing the depths of that, and that is how it's all come to us, and that we will do. And there we will find the full face of Sakirasa, extending to its Sakirasa touched by Madhurya Rasa and Narmasaka, and we find everything you want to know about Madhurya Rasa as well. I used to preach to the devotees that the gopis' love is the highest love. One of my god sisters wrote to Prabhupada, said, he's saying gopis' love is the highest love. I don't think we should be talking about these things. And Prabhupada said, well, that's very nice what he's saying, actually. That's very nice. And he's thinking like, he understood that. Highest, that's a loaded word. But we want to support that as friends of Krishna, because Krishna is driven by a love for Radha. He loves his friends, no doubt. But what about the friends that recognize his romantic plight and want to assist him in that? They will be very close and very dear to him. So this is a very, now we're taking Sakiras to a very high position. And tomorrow, then, we'll talk a little bit more about this and distinguish this Sakirasa in general from Vatsalya and Dasya, such that we see it as kind of like the second position to Madhurya Rasa, like the I want to say in a drama there'll be a leading man and lady, and then there'll be a leading supporting actor. So in Chaitanya Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the leading man and lady combined, right? And Nityananda Prabhu is the leading supporting actor. He got the award for that, supporting actor. We will, in Sakiras, we look at it like this. So, Shri Siddhaji Gopal ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanande. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Please arrange the serving of prasadam. I will chant mantra and then we'll take prasadam.